Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your practice. Though new subscribers and old, right? Thank you. Your support when you like and subscribe and share really helps to support this whole endeavor here. Not only the videos, but the podcasts, which are free, and all the free information on threefoldlotus.com, as well as the miscellaneous links, patrons on Patreon, as well as all of you who participate on PayPal. Without you guys, I couldn't keep this thing going. So, again, the whole purpose for this resource, I call it the resource, the websites and the stores and all of that, is to strengthen your practice, your conviction, your confidence, yeah? And I hope I accomplished that in some part by just demystifying this. There's so much baloney out there and misinformation, and and it's all meant to manipulate either membership or money or politics, and it's been around since man, yeah. Well, man as a humans, okay. Oh, gosh, let's not get hung up on that word. All right. So yeah, I mean, Nichiren, if you read the Go Show or watch the playlist on the Go Show, there's hundreds of videos on all of his Go Shows. It's amazing how hardly a letter or treatise, especially treatises that he wrote, doesn't in some part, if not totally, deal with this very issue. These erroneous views, he called them, right? Or at least that's the translation. These Buddhist quote-unquote schools that worked from the teachings of Shakyamuni, but introduced their own deviations and put them in different orders so they could espouse superiority over the other schools to get political favor, to get, you know the story, on and on and on. Same thing's still happening. So I'm not partial to anyone. I don't have to answer to anyone except my own Buddha-ness. And that's what guides me, that and Nichiren. And Nichiren's very specific. He says, emulate my life, emulate me, emulate the way I practice. It's a tall order, but it's very clear. So yeah, this is a universal mandala, this scroll he created for the benefit of all sentient minds, the same impetus that Shakyamuni had for teaching Buddhism, or actually awakening his own Buddhahood. That was his search, and his proselytizing it across wherever he could travel in India was his effort to propagate it so that anyone, no matter what their caste in life, could experience their karmic freight train, their life to the full, right? The only thing actually holding us back is our samsaric identification of things. We get so preoccupied with having, owning, getting, clinging, craving, right? Different words, same thing. We forget to enjoy the moment of being engrossed in the activity of the entire universe, the engine of life. It's a liberation from all of the politic and positioning and possession. And yes, that's all still there. We don't get rid of it. What we get rid of is our psychological attachment that precipitates all of our anxiety, stress. That's exactly what Buddhism is for. Yeah. Not relaxation that may come of doing the practice, but the goal of the practice is far beyond relaxation. That's a very samsaric way of thinking of life as a biological nervous problem, right? It's a very limited sense of Buddhism, certainly. All right. So we are in the midst of chapter 8. the what does he call it? The apparitional city, right? We're in the verse section, and we'll continue. Under thousands of quotas of Buddhas in the past, and he has propagated and protected the teaching of these Buddhas, seeking the highest wisdom, right? Perfection of wisdom. Under all these Buddhas, he showed that he was the foremost among the disciples, and that he was knowledgeable and wise. So he knew how to use skillful means. Fearless in his teaching, he was able to gladden the people. He never tired in performing the actions of a Buddha. He has already attained the great transcendent powers. What does that mean, transcendent powers? I talk about it every now and again to remind us. It's simply moving your mind's attention, right? Which is kind of craving and clinging. Most of our samsaric attention is on craving and clinging. So removing our attention from the samsaric realm and shifting it, transcending the body politic of humanity and life, the universe, to experience a mental condition, unattached, unbeholden, uninfluenced by those 3,000 realms in every single thought moment that beget samsara. Don't forget, within those 3,000 realms in every single thought moment is also Buddhahood. So we don't get rid of everything. What we do is refocus the mind on perceiving the process. This is happening now and into the future. How do I behave so I can take from now, influence it into a better, a greatest possible manifestation? What was I thinking last night I wanted to bring to this discussion today? I'm going to do a separate video on Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. And I'm going to take it apart and look at Nichiren's script to show you that even in his script in this mandala, he makes clear the associations and the meanings of these concepts, right? Not words, not a magic spell, but the concepts held in Myoho Renge Kyo that are the teaching of self-enlightenment. But I will save that for a video. Sorry, it just crossed my mind. And this is something that we deal with. The reason it came up in my mind is that transcendent power. It's the myo-ho, right? Myo, potential, ho, instantiation. What happens between those two conceptual frameworks? Potential is nothing. It's potential. Until something happens, we don't even know the potential exists or is real or whatever you want to label it. It's only when we have an instantiation, a form, that we can say, oh, well, we have form, so there must have been potential for it, right? It's not magic. And if there was potential for form, then it had to go through a process of formation. Go the other way around. How do we know form is real? Did it just, like a balloon in the air, boop, me, boop, microphone? No, it had to be constructed. There had to be potential for it to form. In order for there to be potential and form, there had to be a transition. Is that transcendent? A transition. Formations. So when we chant, we invoke Buddha-ness. When we chant, we create a formation of mind that enlightens what's already there. Our Buddha sense awakens. And what it sees pierce through, above, below, and all around samsara. Samsara is just a unique condition, and Buddha-ness completely encircles it, sees it from every angle and beyond, transcends samsara. That says transcendent power. Follow? All right. And is endowed with the fourfold unobstructed wisdom. Kind of what I just said, yeah? Knowing whether the faculties of sentient beings are sharp or dull, he always teaches the pure Dharma. Expounding such doctrines as these, he has taught thousands of kotis of beings, and by making them abide in the Mahayana teaching, he himself has purified his Buddha land. In the future, he will also pay homage to incalculable, innumerable Buddhas, as he raises them all around him, influences them to awaken all around, protect and propagate the true Dharma, and also purify his Buddha land. He will always fearlessly teach the Dharma using his skillful means. Save or liberate incalculable sentient beings and enable them to achieve omniscience. And that's what it would feel like, right? Nothing beyond your clarity of understanding. No questions. It's just, yep, this is happening. Just as it always has, just as it always will. This is the engine of life. Paying homage to all the Tathagatas and preserving the treasure house of the Dharma, he will eventually become the Buddha called Dharmapravasa. His land will be called Suvisuddha, which will consist of 7 treasures. His kalpa will be called the Ratnavabhasa. There will be a large number of bodhisattvas there, numbering immeasurable kotis. His Buddha land will be filled with bodhisattvas who have attained great transcendent powers and are endowed with dignity. And I've been talking about dignity long before I started reading this particular version of the Lotus Sutra, haven't I? There will also be innumerable Shravakas, who have perfected the 3 sciences, the 8 liberations, and the fourfold unobstructed wisdom. Such beings as these will form the Sangha. All of us learning, right? World of learning, Shravakas, hearing the words of the Dharma, the teaching of the Dharma, to be more accurate. The sentient beings in this land will have already cut themselves off from sexual desires. Everyone there will be thus pure and born spontaneously. That's a bit hyperbole, but okay. He's really talking, again, about the mind. He's really talking about the preoccupation of sex. Every time I talk about sex in Buddhism, the thing that stunned me most when I read it was Nichiren talking, was it to Shijo Kingo? He wrote a letter to him and he said, enjoy what there is to enjoy, suffer what there is to suffer, just keep practicing and enjoy a bottle of sake with your wife, and while you make love to her, both of you look into each other's eyes and chant the Daimoku. I'm paraphrasing, but I've tried that. It's pretty difficult. Stuck with me, obviously. With bodies adorned with the 32 marks, they will feast on the delight in the Dharma. Feast on delight in the Dharma, okay? And pleasure in meditation, never thinking of eating anything else. I get it. There will be neither women nor troubled states of existence. The qualities of the monk Purna will be completely perfected, and there will be as many wise people in this pure land. I am now only briefly explaining these immeasurable things. Well, it can be seen that sex and women are still a troublesome thing in the cultures of India at the time. And remember, this is the provisional part of the Lotus Sutra. So he's still using the rhetoric they're all familiar with, let alone trying to figure out how a land of no women and no sex produces children spontaneously. See, he's speaking in skillful means. And if the people he's talking to are thinking deeply enough to ask that question, that's okay, because he's going to fix that in a couple of chapters, yeah? But this is appealing to their attention, making them go, well, how does that work? Right? But he's dealing with their cultural reality still with this ultimate teaching. It all comes crashing to reality very soon. But he hasn't quite let go of it. He's just trying to paint this picture of the landscape of their minds being altered, seriously altered. Okay? Where are we time-wise? Oh, plenty of time. Thereupon, there were 1,200 Arhats who had attained complete mental discipline, who thought this: we have joyfully attained an unprecedented experience. If the Bhagavat would give each of us a prediction like those he's given the other great disciples, we would be overjoyed. Now, this is, again, I have to remind myself, this is the beginning of the Lotus Sutra, even though we're in chapter 8, right? The first 14 chapters are all preparatory. But it's frustrating, isn't it, in chapter 8 to read how craving these Arhats, just like the Shravakas and the Pratyaga Buddhas, these Arhats are craving a pat on the head, a little gold star from Shakyamuni. Okay, it's sounding like Oprah Winfrey is in the ceremony in the sky. You get a Bodhi, you get a future Buddhahood, you get a future, but they still don't get that this is something they manifest for themselves. They're still not there. Please, please tell us we're going to be Buddhas. It's ridiculous that after 42 years of teaching and now teaching the profound Lotus Sutra, they're still stuck. That is greed. That's totally samsara. Enlightenment is enlightenment when you understand that it's A, already in you, B, already happening, C, you're sleeping through it. Stop sleeping. How do you stop sleeping? This teaching, Myoho Renge Kyo. See, Nichiren must have felt like this when he was reading all this stuff going, dang, come on, people, right? I mean, I could only imagine, but you and I have read through Nichiren a lot, and I've read the entire Gosho Zenshu and the Gosho Teshin, this is the other group, and which, by the way, I don't recommend. It's too religious. Although I have a playlist on it, you'll be here for yourself. But it's so obvious at times reading Nichiren's words, even though they're translations, he was beside himself at how people in his day, not let alone almost 3,000 years ago, but in 13th century Japan, still people were just so authoritarian and stuck on being given. You don't have to be given Buddhahood. You have it. You simply need to awaken it. Get determined about it. Change your attitude. Make your intent Buddha. So here we go. The Buddha, knowing their minds, what a compassionate guy, addressed Mahakashyapa, saying, I shall now bestow the prediction of highest complete enlightenment one by one on these 1,200 Arhats who are in my presence. Making it quite obvious, by the way, as a reminder, because you've heard me say it so many times, Arhats are not fully enlightened. He says it right here. I will now predict highest complete enlightenment one by one on these 1,200 Arhats who are in my presence. Why would he have to predict it if they were already there? My great disciple, the monk Ajnata Kaundinya, who is in this assembly, will pay homage to 62,000 of Kodasa Buddhas. He will thereafter become the Buddha called Samantabhava, a Tathagata. And here it says Arhat. These translators don't understand how they're stomping over the words of Shakyamuni. This is just not right. But completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha Bhagavat. The 500 Arhats beginning with Uruvila Kashyapa, Gaya Kashyapa, Nadi Kashyapa, Kalodayin, Udayin, Iniruddha, Revata, Kapina, Bakula, Kunda we meet again in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, by the way, Svagata, and that sounded Italian, and the others will all attain highest complete enlightenment. They will all have the same name, that of Samantabhava. Then the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. Oh my goodness, thank you. He didn't go one at a time through 1,200. The repetition, I would quit reading this. So I'm glad that he added some brevity. Fond of saying. The monk Kayudinya will meet immeasurable Buddhas, and after incalculable kalpas have passed, he will attain perfect enlightenment. He will always emit a great ray of light and will be endowed with transcendent powers. His fame will spread universally throughout the 10 directions. He will be honored by all beings and will always teach the highest path. He will therefore be called Samantabhava. His land will be pure, and the Bodhisattvas there will all be of great vigor. Cool. They will all ascend marvelous towers and roam in the lands of the 10 directions. They will present the most excellent offerings to all the Buddhas. After having shown their reverence in this way, they will be full of great joy and immediately return to their own lands. Such will be their transcendent powers, their influence. The lifespan of this Buddha, or the widespread propagation of Buddha-ness, is what that actually means, will be 60,000 kalpas, and the true Dharma will last twice as long as his lifespan. Now, see why you might be, if you get lost in this idea of kalpas and how long this will be around and all these big numbers, and then he throws in twice as long as his lifespan. Do you see what I mean about time in Buddhism? A kalpa is a sensation of time. Right? You eat a bite of some really delicious, creamy ice cream, or maybe you can't eat ice cream. Think of something, and maybe it's vegetarian, maybe you're vegetarian, and you're having the most amazing pate, or not pate because that's animal, but a dish, a masala, and I can't remember my Indian food names now, but at any rate, and it's just sublime, right? And you just let it sit in your mouth for a minute and you swallow it, and it's like 2 hours after you eat, you recall that sensation. Man, that was so good, right? The flavor of it lasts. And I'm using food because we see it often in Buddhism, right? The ghee of a teaching, right? You don't soon forget that kind of an experience. It lasts a kalpa. You also don't forget the most nasty thing you ever put in your mouth. That can seem to last far longer because it's so heinous, yeah? But you see how the time and the mind are the operating theater of Buddhism, right? So remember that as you read these definitions that seem to defy definition, because then he says that the length of this influence will last twice his lifespan. Well, that's a pretty knowable feature. When he dies, how old was he? His teachings will last at least that long. Well, that's a pretty good while. Most of us would love to know that we have that kind of influence on the world. Such will be their transcendent powers. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 60,000 kalpas. It'll seem like it because of so much influence he will be spreading, yeah? And the true Dharma will last twice as long as his lifespan, so 120,000 kalpas. The semblance Dharma will last twice as long as this, and when the Dharma disappears, the devas and humans will grieve. Those 500 monks will become Buddhas, each in their turn, all having the same name, Samantaprabha, in other words, the influence, because the teaching, the highest teaching, is pursued and propagated over and over again throughout these lifetimes. He gives it the same name because there's no deviation, no difference in the teaching. The idea of labels, again, attachments, cravings, clinging. The difference between samsara and Buddha-ness does not require a label. When we communicate to one another in samsara, we use labels all over the place. But what's important is to understand what we're talking about, not what we call what we're talking about. Right? They will give predictions, one after the other, saying, after my parinirvana, so-and-so will become a Buddha. The world he inspires will be exactly like mine today. The embellishments of their lands, all the transcendent powers, the assembly of the Bodhisattvas and Shravakas, the true and semblance Dharma, the lifespan and duration of the Kalpa will be just as I explained before. O Kashyapa, you now know that the 500 Arhats whose minds are free and the remaining Shravakas will also be exactly like this. You should teach those who are not in this assembly. Because now everyone who's here is hearing the next level of understanding, and we're about to enter the Lotus Sutra proper. This is the Lotus Sutra proper, but you mean the Honmon, right? And these people are prepared and now have predictions to inspire them to pay attention so they can do this themselves. And then they'll think of my predictions as, well, I mean, if he'd have told us how we do it, we wouldn't have asked him for predictions. We'd just get to work. But, right, they might not appreciate that their minds were kind of locked in samsara. But Shakyamuni understood that. That's why he's teaching step by step here, right? Thereupon, the 500 Arhats, having obtained their predictions from the Buddha, were joyful and ecstatic. He said, we're going to do it. He said, we're going to get there. They rose from their seats, approached the Buddha, bowed until their foreheads touched his feet. Must have had big feet. Repented of their faults and reproached themselves, saying, "Oh, Bhagavat, we have always thought that we attained complete nirvana. We now realize that we were ignorant." Hallelujah. Why is this? We should have attained the wisdom of the Tathagatas, yet we were satisfied with little wisdom. Okay, that's your excuse. We weren't as smart as we thought we were. Oh, you were arrogant. Interesting for a completely enlightened being to be so arrogant. Oops. As they would say in the South, my bad. Right? Oh, Bhagavat, suppose there were a man who came to the house of a close friend and went to sleep after becoming intoxicated with wine. The intimate friend, having to go out on official business, sews a priceless jewel into the inside of his friend's garment and, giving it to him, leaves. But the man who was drunk and asleep is totally unaware of this. After getting up, he leaves and roams around until he arrives in another country. Although he diligently seeks for food and clothing, they are very difficult to obtain. He is satisfied if he just obtains a very meager amount. Later on, the intimate friend happens to meet this man. Seeing him, he says, "Oh, poor fellow, how have you come to this state through lack of food and clothing? Once on such and such a day, in such and such a month and year, I sewed a priceless jewel into the inside of your garment, wanting to make things easier for you and to let you enjoy the desires of the five senses as much as you wished. It is still there, although you aren't aware of it, and you seek your livelihood with great effort and hardship. You have been very foolish. Sell this jewel and use it to buy what you need. From now on, you will know neither poverty nor want and can live your life as you wish." Interesting little saga. They're basically admitting to being so overwhelmed with their own samsaric identity that they didn't pay attention nor find the jewel of the Dharma, though they thought they attained it. How they thought they attained it, I can't speak to that, but they're obviously very much aware of it now. The Buddha is exactly like this. When he was a Bodhisattva, he aroused in us the aspiration for omniscience. Nevertheless, we forgot. We did not know or understand. We attained the path of the Arhats and considered that we had attained nirvana. You attained something, right? It's not a total negation, but you didn't attain what you thought you attained. It was very hard for us to support ourselves, and we were satisfied with little, as though that penance was somehow making them more enlightened. Sound like religion to you? There's nothing like that in Buddhism, and yet people use it for exactly that purpose. What are we, just gluttons for punishment? Is that just an aspect of samsara that's unavoidable? It's frustrating when you read this stuff and you go, man, why is this so difficult? Don't we all want freedom? We say it all the time, but we don't experience it. Wanting something isn't the same as experiencing it. Duh, right? But we never fully lost our wish for all knowledge. Now the Bhagavat, perceiving our minds, has said this: O monks, what you have attained is not complete nirvana. For a long time I have made you plant the various roots of good, merit, of a Buddha, and shown you the marks of nirvana through skillful means. That is why you consider yourselves to have actually attained nirvana. Just because you know how to talk about it doesn't mean you've achieved it. O Bhagavat, we now know that we are actually bodhisattvas and will obtain a prediction of highest complete enlightenment. For this reason, we are extremely happy at having obtained such an unprecedented experience. They've achieved another step. Their minds are opened. At that time, Ajna Takaundinya and the others, thank you, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this, further spoke in these verses. Well, we're almost, if you'll indulge me, we'll just finish this chapter, all right? We have heard his voice, giving the prediction of utmost ease. Interesting word, ease, right? Because we've talked about samsara, Shakyamuni has talked about samsara as a dis-ease. Sickness, dis-ease are not things you get antibiotics for in Buddhism. They are a mental change, a transcendent mind. That's where the sickness is. The dis-ease is in the mind. Rejoicing in his unprecedented experience, we bow to the Buddha, whose wisdom is immeasurable. We now repent for our faults, faults being misleading our own minds. Our attitudes weren't right. And when your attitude isn't right, your intent is fouled, right? In the presence of the Bhagavat, although we had attained only a small measure of nirvana, they'd attained something. Out of the immeasurable treasures of the Buddha, we were satisfied, self-satisfied, just like ignorant fools. Suppose there were a poor man who went to the house of a close friend, whose family was very wealthy. He was entertained with a feast and had a priceless jewel sewn to the inside of his garment. The wealthy friend made him this gift. Without saying anything, he went away. The poor man had fallen asleep and did not know of this. Shortly after, and they're kind of making an excuse there. It's not that he didn't know of it. He was ignorant of it. Would have been a better way to say that, right? Shortly afterward, this man gets up, and after wandering around, arrives in another country. He manages to seek out enough food and clothing to live, but has great difficulty in supporting himself. Yet he is satisfied to obtain a little and does not desire anything better. He is still unaware of the priceless jewel sewn inside of his garment. Maybe if he wasn't so satisfied with paucity, he might have searched a little harder and found that jewel within his jacket, but couldn't be bothered, right? The intimate friend who gave him the jewel meets this poor man later and bitterly reproaches him. What are you doing living like this? Showing him the jewel that had been sewn into his garment. The poor man, seeing this jewel, rejoices greatly, and with this rich treasure he enjoys to his satisfaction the desires of the skandhas, the five senses. We are exactly like this. For a long time, the Bhagavat has led and inspired us throughout his compassion and planted in us the highest aspiration because we were ignorant, there it is. We neither noticed nor knew. They didn't conceive of the profound meaning. Even though they knew they were being told something valuable, they never saw themselves achieving it, not really. We were satisfied with attaining only a small measure of nirvana. And we get it, right? We do that. We get excited about, take any skill that you develop in your life. The moment you learn a little bit, you start telling everybody else, like like you're now the teacher, look what you can do with this, until you try to do something and fall flat on your face and go, well, I guess I didn't understand it as good as I thought. Somebody asks you about it and you're like, what do you mean? Well, I never thought of that, right? Because you don't know what you think you know. That's exactly what the Arhats are saying. We made that mistake, and now you've pointed it out. He still had to point it out, but I guess that's why we are good friends to one another. That's what the Sangha is for each of us in our own way, in our own lives, to share our insights so we can combine, eschew, make clear the path to Buddhahood, yeah? And we did not seek for the rest. Now the Buddha has enlightened us, saying, this is not the real nirvana. Attaining the highest wisdom of the Buddhas is indeed the only real nirvana. Now, having heard the predictions from the Buddha and of the adorned lands and the subsequent predictions, we universally rejoice in body and mind. And thus endeth the 8th chapter. 9th chapter is the predictions for those who still have more to learn and for those who do not. Interesting title. We'll see how that goes. Once again, I deeply appreciate your participation in these, whether you're listening to the podcasts or these videos or both. I like the one facility in the podcast that I like the most is they're very portable. You can keep them on your phone through Podbean or wherever you get your podcasts. They're not that huge of a file, and that way you have them within reach all the time, 24/7. So you can listen to them anytime you want. These videos, I mean, you can listen to the videos too, but they're much larger files, not as portable. I'm visual. I'm an artist, or I have been for many, many years. I haven't painted in a while. But at any rate, take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. That's a kindness. Yeah, just be kind to yourself. Eat right. Take care of yourself. Do what you can to be kind to those around you. And you know what? You'll do that automatically if you just stay strong in your practice. Stay regular in your practice. At my age, I got to be careful what I say. Anyway, I'm very grateful to you all. Oh, by the way, grateful for the notes that I've gotten about Chloe. So thank you for your compassion there. Big resource. Like and subscribe. Patreon, PayPal, ebooks, free podcasts, free information on threefoldlotus.com. You know where it all is. Links in the description. I'll see you in the next video, okay? And again, bye for now.